When you walk out of university with a MCom in economics, you know nothing about economics.
Yeah.
Economics is very practical. And that's what's taken me many, many years to fully understand how all these things fit together.
Okay. So for a person who has no clue what economics is all about, what is economics?
Well, in practical terms, it's very simple. It's really the study of human behavior.
Yeah.
What you feel about the potholes in your street, or how angry you are when there's no electricity, or do you feel confident about the country's future, or do you as a family have enough money to live by every month? So it's all those very simple things, the way that we live day to day. And you mentioned earlier on limited resources. And we all make our utmost to make a living out there and provide for our families. So that's what economics is all about. If you and I feel confident about ourselves and the future, the economy will thrive. If we're depressed about our incomes, job opportunities, or what the economy is doing, or what politicians are doing to the economy, then that is what's going to drive our decisions. Do we spend? Do we buy? Do we go out to a restaurant? And all of these things then drive the economy.
Why is economics such a big issue with governments around the world?
Because the need to provide for the population, for the voters. Politicians, they need voters to vote for them. And so are people in jobs? Are people earning enough money? That is one of those inputs in terms of, does the economy grow? You need the economy to grow to provide more jobs for the unemployed, or more income for those that are employed, to get the tax income to provide the basic services like policing and building roads, building airports. So it's a very integrated system from policies that drive economic growth, but then you and I, in terms of our decisions, also drive the economy, and all of that bring tax income to government, and then they make decisions on how to spend that. Sometimes it's irresponsible spending, we know that very well in South Africa, and other times we're moving in the right direction. But the same as you and I have got a monthly budget, government's also got a budget, and the way they handle that, that has an impact on the economy as well.
So economists talk about economic indicators. What are these economic indicators? What is their significance, and what are the limitations with?
So there's a whole bunch. Let's look at a couple of them. GDP. It stands for Gross Domestic Product. It's really the economy, the size of the economy. Everything that goes into that. What you and I spend, what government spends, what businesses spend, and what businesses invest. In other words, buying new machinery and equipment, or building a factory, or governments building roads, all of that goes into the economy. But then we also import goods from other countries, that gets into the calculation, and we produce here to export to other countries. So the sum total of all of that is GDP. And how much that grows, that's economic growth. So this year it's a bit higher than last year. Or when we had the COVID crisis, there was a big slump because there weren't lots of activity taking place. And then negative growth. And that's the important part. That drives other decisions. So that's GDP. And of course, one big one that you and I as consumer focuses on, inflation. And perhaps we can explore that a little bit. Nobody really understands inflation. The man in the street, it's a difficult concept. But it's very simple. It's the average change in prices of the goods and services that an individual buys. So there's going to be lots of different inflation rates across the country. Each one of us will have his own inflation rate, because I spend my money differently than you spend your money. I might buy whiskey, you not at all. So I've got a weight in my basket of goods and services I buy that includes whiskey, you not. Somebody else might spend a lot in terms of education, because he might have 3 kids, I've got 1 child, so I spend less. So they're different baskets multiplied by the changes in prices of those things that we buy. That's inflation. So inflation, if it rises too much, it takes away from your ability to spend your money, because prices increase too much. Then you have to cut back in terms of your monthly budget. Petrol prices, for instance. Petrol prices rise significantly. We've got limited monthly budget. Now we have to spend on petrol to get to work. We have less money to spend elsewhere. So all of this influences inflation. We need inflation to be as low as possible, because Ronald Reagan said, ex-US president in the 80s, inflation is enemy number one. And I totally agree with that. And the Reserve Bank agrees with that, because then, coming to interest rates, when inflation is too high, the Reserve Bank lift interest rates. So those of us with debt pays more interest on that debt. Through that process, it means we have less money to spend elsewhere. The Reserve Bank try to control inflation. So it's of course not great for us to have to pay more interest on our debt.
Yes.
But that's all in part of managing the economy. And then if I can get back to policy, we talked about government's budget. That's what we call fiscal policy. And interest rate decisions, that's made by the Reserve Bank, not government. That's called monetary policy, the interest rate